Today I'm going to show you in this next sound design short how I like to make few different types of Reese bass, but it doesn't have to be a bass, it can be a lead or whatever. Reese's and PhasePlant, let's go. Alright, so PhasePlant. Put it here. Okay, so we got PhasePlant. I liked using the analog oscillators for this. So, saw wave. Duplicate it by holding Control and clicking. Now we can detune one of these. So, what I'd like to do with these Reeses is split the difference. So maybe I'll go up and then go down the same amount. So minus 16 centitones and plus 16 centitones. The next thing you're going to want is a nonlinear filter. This is kind of like their analog modeled filter. These are all nice. Let's try out the warm. The warm's pretty cool. So, very classic sound. There's also the 3 oscillator setup where you have one in the middle that's not detuned, and then one on either side of the detune. So one's tuned flat, one's tuned sharp. So you can hear the rhythm is a little bit more inconsistent of the rhythm of the beating of the oscillators. So let's get rid of this middle one again. You can hear that rhythm's very consistent, and you can see that subnote on the spectrum wobbling up and down. Another thing that's useful is polyphony 1, legato, glide on, and like 100 milliseconds of glide. So, yeah, that's useful. Alright, so that's your basic saw Reese. Next, I will show you how you can use the sync. So you can use this sync. The sync sounds a little better when you have less detuning. So that sounds pretty good modulated, and that's all you have on the saw wave is sync. But let's go to the square wave. So now we'll talk about pulse waves, because this is a pulse wave. The difference between a square wave and a pulse wave is the square wave is stuck being square, and the pulse wave has a pulse width modulation capability. So this square wave is actually pulse wave because you can modulate the pulse. Actually, you know, a square wave is a type of pulse wave, but if we change the pulse width, this is no longer a square wave. It's a pulse wave. So detuned square wave sounds like this. So fantastic sound. As soon as you start modulating this pulse width, it gives you a whole new level of awesomeness. So maybe I'll get an LFO and just map it to the pulse width of both of these. So now I'll modulate the pulse width. With all these sounds, it can sound really nice to have a bit of overdrive. So I'll get an overdrive out and just plop that on the chain. It's a little bit of wide, dry, wet overdrive. And obviously, pitch bends sound really nice with these Reese sounds. So it can be good to have like a bit of modulation to the pitch. I take this off re-trigger and turn it up, we can start getting some Hoover activity. So yeah, a little subtle vibrato is nice too if you turn this up a bit, vibrato speed. So yeah, that's square waves. They're very nice. They also have sync, just like the saw waves. And again, that sounds a bit better if you have less detuning going on. Another good thing with these sounds is to take the note plugin and do key track on the filter. So that's pretty cool for like a more melodic vibe. And again, it sounds good to modulate the sync. So really good for those kind of Moog type basses. Okay, so next patch you can use is we'll take this modulation off, this modulation, this. So we can go and do a triangle wave. So it's a much more subtle sound, almost like a sine wave. So the sync is where it really comes into its own. So the triangle sync it's a great sound. So we can modulate these. And it can also sound really good to do an envelope on the sync instead. So we'll do like an envelope on the sync. And that brings us to the next patch, which would be the sine wave. Very similar sound, especially if we turn this drive down. So sync modulation on the sine wave's pretty cool. And that brings us to the next patch. We'll go back to the saw. We'll leave that envelope and we can start duplicating these. And now we have the next patch, which is combining the saws and the triangles. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. And the last thing I'll leave you with is the ability to add a bit more analog feel by using a bunch of really fast, smooth randoms to modulate the tuning. So you can go here and just modulate this tuning by a smidgen and then attenuating it even more. And we'll delete these so we can use the settings on this one. So I'll duplicate this one, map it to the next oscillator, duplicate it, map it to the next oscillator, and duplicate it and map it to the next oscillator. So now we'll just have a little bit more inconsistency in the tuning. So yeah, that's a bit about building Reese's in PhasePlant. Thanks for watching. I'm Sephiros. Until next time, big up. Peace.